Today I'm going to present some new neodymium isotope data from the Southern Caribbean, which we use to reconstruct the deglacial intermediate water circulation. And I want to acknowledge both of my co-authors here. And also I want to acknowledge the European Association of Geochemistry who funded my travel here from Germany. The water mass structure in the Western Atlantic today can be reconstructed can be identified by the seawater delta carbon-13 values, in which the North Atlantic deep water forms in high latitude North Atlantic and flows southward. This water mass occupies a depth between 1,500 meters and 4,000 meters, and it is sandwiched by the northward flow of the Antarctic intermediate water above and Antarctic bottom water underneath. Today, these different water masses have their very distinct epsilon neodymium values or neodymium isotopic compositions. For example, the NADW has an epsilon neodymium value of negative 13.5, while both AAIW and AABW have an epsilon neodymium value between negative 8 to negative 9. During the last glacial, delta carbon-13 from benthic foraminifera confines a much shallower overturning circulation in which the lower depth limit of the glacial North Atlantic intermediate water was shallower than 2,000 meters. And GNAIW is the glacial analog of NADW, and it was formed at a much farther south location at a much shallower depth. This difference may have imprinted GNAIW with the different epsilon neodymium values during the glacial. The northward extent of AIW is not as well identified in this diagram because there is no data between 30 degrees south and 27 degrees north. However, more recent studies suggest a slight weakening of the AIW during the last glacial. During the last deglaciation, there exists a lot of controversies over intermediate water circulation. This map gives a few examples in the Atlantic Ocean, in which the studies labeled in blue inferred enhanced AAIW during either the Younger Dryas and Heinrich 1, and these studies used corals or sediment cores that are generally deeper than the modern depth range of AIW. While studies labeled in yellow, they suggest a weakening of AIW during either the Younger Dryas and Heinrich 1, and these studies use sediment cores that are within the modern depth limit of AIW. Interestingly, a study in the tropical Eastern Atlantic also measured enhanced southern source water during both the Younger Dryas and Heinrich 1, but these were interpreted to record an enhanced upward diffusion from the abyssal southern source water. Our study shed light on these controversies by using a sediment core from the Southern Caribbean. The map on the left-hand side shows our study site where VM12107 is located within the Bonaire Basin, as can be seen in the inset here, is located at a depth of 1079 meters. Today, subsurface and intermediate waters enter the Caribbean through a series of deep seals, and the deepest seals connected the Bonaire Basin and the Southern Caribbean is at a depth of 1,500 meters, so that the variations in intermediate water circulation in the open Atlantic should have a direct impact on our study site. The map on the right-hand side shows that in the modern ocean, 43% of water entering the Caribbean are of southern origins, including AIW. A salinity depth profile across the Eastern Caribbean clearly identifies the presence of AIW, as shown by the salinity minimum here between 600 and 1,000 meters. Our study site today lies at the boundary between AIW and upper NADW, so it should be sensitive to the past variations between these two water masses. Importantly, a recent seawater neodymium isotope study confirms that AIW retains its epsilon neodymium values during its passage through the Caribbean. So we are confident that VM12107 in the Southern Caribbean is able to capture past variability in intermediate water circulation. This plot here shows epsilon neodymium values on the y-axis and calendar age on the x-axis. The yellow bars highlight the Younger Dryas and Heinrich 1, while gray shadings here shows the modern seawater epsilon neodymium values in a nearby core at similar depth as to our study site. The upside-down diamonds here are age control points, and the diamonds here are epsilon neodymium values from the acid reductive leachate from decarbonated sediments. And we can see that the core top value is significantly higher than the modern seawater values. The downcore leachate data shows no long-term trend, but high millennial variations. On the other hand, the core top epsilon neodymium value from fish debris agree well with the modern seawater values, confirming the seawater ingridity in this fish debris record. During the last glacial maximum, fish debris epsilon neodymium value was 1.5 unit higher, and between 19,000 and 12,000 years ago, there was a gentle decrease of 1 epsilon neodymium values, followed by a more abrupt drops in epsilon neodymium values within 600 years. This is followed by a slight increase of 0.4 epsilon neodymium values into the Holocene. And you can see that there are distinct difference between the leachate and fish debris record, and this might suggest that there might be potential problems with the preferential leaching of different detrital components when we're leaching out the ferromanganese oxides. And it does suggest that the leachate neodymium isotopic records in the Southern Caribbean cannot truly capture the past seawater signal. So in the following slides, I will focus my conclusions on the fish debris epsilon neodymium record. We also measured epsilon neodymium values in the detrital fraction, which varies between negative 12.5 and negative 13. The detrital record shows no correlation with the fish debris epsilon neodymium record, again confirming the seawater ingridity in the fish debris record. Next, we can compare multiple oxygenic epsilon neodymium records from different studies in the tropical North Atlantic. The solid blue symbols here are the leachate epsilon neodymium values from the Florida Strait. This record is recently confirmed by fish debris epsilon neodymium values within the same core as shown by the open circles here. And during the deglaciation, there were abrupt decreases in epsilon neodymium values during both the Younger Dryas and Heinrich 1. These were interpreted to record decreased in AAIW influence at this study site. And this interpretation was recently confirmed by 4-gram epsilon neodymium records from the Demerara rise. Although there is a consistent 2 to 3 epsilon units difference between these two records, and one may suspect that the neodymium isotope record in the Florida Straits may be susceptible to boundary exchange. However, boundary exchange cannot explain the identical deglacial variations between the records in Florida Straits and the records in Demerara rise. So we think that a more detailed study is needed to address this offset. When we plot the fish debris epsilon neodymium records here from the Southern Caribbean, it shows a deglacial variation that is completely different from that from the Florida Straits or from the Demerara rise. There is no abrupt decrease in either the Younger Dryas, during either the Younger Dryas or Heinrich 1. Instead, it shows a stepwise decrease in epsilon neodymium values throughout the whole deglaciation. Next, based on a simple binary mixing model, we can calculate the fraction of AIW at each study site. In the Demerara rise, between 670 and 1100 meters, seawater is comprised of 50 to 60% of AIW in the Holocene. Moving northward to the Southern Caribbean, the fraction of AIW decreased slightly and is about 45%. And if the Lawton source water had a similar epsilon neodymium values compared to NADW today, then we can calculate the fraction of glacial Antarctic intermediate water at both locations. And we can see from the calculation that in the Demerara rise, there was 10 to 20% decrease in the AIW fraction during the LGM. However, there is essentially low change of the AIW fraction during the LGM, between the LGM and Holocene in the Southern Caribbean. And given the more northern location of the Southern Caribbean core, we think this is not possible, and we thus propose that the Lawton source water might have a different epsilon neodymium values. And keeping that in mind, we can actually calculate the potential epsilon neodymium values for Lawton source water based on different AIW fractions in the past. And if AIW decreased by 10% during the LGM in the Southern Caribbean, this would yield an epsilon neodymium value of negative 11.5 for the Lawton source water. If AIW decreased by 20%, then this will yield an epsilon neodymium value of negative 11 for the Lawton source water during the LGM. And if this was the case, if this is the case, then the gentle decrease of 1 epsilon units between 19,000 years and 12,000 years ago can be interpreted to record a a slow recovery of the more radiogenic northern source water toward a more unradiogenic northern source water. At the end of the Younger Dryas, the abrupt decrease in the fish debris epsilon neodymium value can thus be interpreted to record a full recovery of the northern source water. And with that, I would like to conclude my talks with a series of bathtub cartoons. Here in the figure on the upper right-hand side, circles represent sediment cores from different studies, with the blue from Florida Strait, the green from Demerara Rise, and the red from the Southern Caribbean. Today, North Atlantic deep water has an epsilon neodymium value between -13 to -14. And the sediment cores in the Florida Straits and also the sediment cores from the Demerara Rise are bathed by an AIW. And VM12107 from the Southern Caribbean is located at the boundary between AIW and upper NADW. During the last glacial maximum, extensive sea ice coverage may force the production location of glacial North Atlantic intermediate water to be much farther south and at a much shallower location. And this has imprinted GNAIW with a more positive epsilon neodymium values. At this time, AIW was slightly shallower and weaker, and VM12107 was completely bathed by GNAIW. During the last deglaciation, sea ice started to melt, and northern source water, the epsilon neodymium values of the northern source water becomes progressively more negative. And during both the Younger Dryas and Heinrich I, there was significant reductions in AIW, as recorded in the studies from Florida Straits and also Demerara Rise. However, these variations in AIW is not registered in the core by the fish debris epsilon neodymium values in VM12107 from the Southern Caribbean. Instead, the fish debris epsilon neodymium values in the Southern Caribbean records a stepwise recovery of the northern source water throughout the deglaciation. So in conclusion, throughout the LGM and also the last deglaciation, VM12107 was always more influenced by the northern source water and thus confines the lower boundary of AIW to be no deeper than it is today. And that should conclude my talk. Thank you.
Perfect in time. Thank you. So I think we have time for questions. Any questions here? Martin?
Your record in the Caribbean is relatively close to land.
Mm-hmm.
Can you exclude that changes in the erosional indices from land and actually alter your record?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So first, when we analyze the fish debris epsilon neodymium values, we compare it to the nearby seawater values, and that actually agrees really well. So we have confidence that at least during the modern day, the fish debris value in the Southern Caribbean is recorded in the seawater. And we also compare the downcore values of the detrital and also that from the fish debris, and there is really no correlation. So we think that boundary exchange is not very significant in our study site. And also, this morning I visited the number students poster, and they actually show a core just outside of the Bonaire Basin, and the epsilon neodymium record is very similar to our record in the Southern Caribbean.